Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
And we have talked a fair amount on the pod in the past about DIYs, crafting, but we've gotten a few requests to just do a full episode dedicated to making, crafting Halloween DIYs.
I'm so glad. Like, the timing of this was so perfect. I had a gal Instagram message me today and be like, hey, would you ever consider doing like a video about Halloween DIYs?
Hey!
Like, I'm not kidding you, an hour
Perfect.
before we recorded this. And I was like, hey, you're going to want to listen to the podcast here in a couple weeks.
Stay tuned. All right. So just to get us in, get fresh, my first topic is just what is your DIY process? Like, kind of when you're thinking about things, like how do you get into it? I always like in the world of writing, people refer to refer to people as either a planner or a pantser, as in someone who's flying by the seat of their pants. Do you relate to one of those in your crafting life?
Both, I think. I'm a planner to a fault, but then when it like actually comes time to do it, the plan usually never
Right.
matters, you know? Like I think that's one of the most like harsh truths about making anything is like you can plan as much as you want, but when you get into it, things are going to go
Yes,
not how you
for sure.
expect. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I'm front load a lot. Like I like to put in a lot of like when I think of something, like either I think of it, off it comes to me in a vision or I see,
You have your that's so
yep,
Raven moment.
or I like see something online that I'm like, "Ooh, I bet I could make that." I tend to like collect a lot of inspiration. Like I'm a big mood board person.
Mhm.
I like to pin things and collect and I look for like blog posts about making that kind of thing, videos about making that kind of thing, and I kind of like try to gather my little like hoard of information. And then I just am kind of like, woo, and here I go. And I jump in and I do it with like no like real plan for like executing it, is my general process.
The ADHD way, as they
Yeah.
I'm like, first I make it my entire personality for 6 weeks. Then I actually start the project, don't make a plan, and then I take 8 weeks to finish it, but most of it was done in the first 3 days.
Ooh, I feel so seen right now. I know. I was like, Midge will relate to this. What about you? Are you like a big like inspo girl or no?
Yeah, I think I mean, of course, it depends on the
Mhm.
project, but yeah, I think I think you and I are both this kind of person where I get like fever dreams about things. Like as I'm falling asleep at night,
Yes.
I'll like sit up and be, like when you text someone at 3 a.m. and say we
You do
should
a
do a
podcast?
podcast,
You
like
know,
that. Uh,
that kind of thing.
that kind of thing. But yeah, so I think I tend to get a really strong idea and then like you said, yeah, I'm definitely a Pinterest girly. I have a whole private Pinterest board that's just called like video
Nice.
inspiration, and I just pin images there, even if they're not a craft
Oh,
or
yeah.
something, just things that I look at that I find inspiring in some way that trigger something in my brain that's like, oh, that could be something. I don't know what it is, but that could be something. So I'm definitely, yeah, mood board type person. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm a YouTuber. YouTube is such a great freaking
Yeah.
resource to just watch people make cool crap and then uh I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of you here in the episode, but the project I just completed was very much a like full mood board and then watch 40 people do different variations on that and then kind of pick and choose what I thought was going to work for me
Yes. Yeah, for
type
sure.
thing.
Um,
Yeah.
so we'll move on, and this could fit this project, or you could say we will be talking about like favorite projects later at the end of the
Mm.
episode. Um, but the next thing that I kind of had was we got several questions just about like kind of how you pick a theme when you're decorating and like what kind of and like kind of realizing what DIYs you might need. and like what kind of influences your decor choices, which I think for both of us, like we just said, like there's a lot of just kind of collecting images,
Hmm.
inspiration throughout the year, even if it's not like a one-to-one. I have a Pinterest board that I just call aesthetic, and I just
Yeah.
tag things that I'm like, well, I like this, so I want to keep it.
Yeah. And I think as far as picking themes, for me, that's one of the most helpful things
Hmm.
because it helps me see the holes in the market, right? Like, if I know, for example, with me this year, like I knew I wanted to do a really heavy Sleepy Hollow theme. There is little to no Sleepy Hollow
Yeah.
merchandise on the market. So that helps then, like, okay, I know I want to do this. I know that the product does not exist in the wild. So then what in my and then it's just like
Yeah.
freedom, right? Because then it's like, okay, I can imagine anything I want it to look like because I'm not basing it around something I can buy at a store. So once you kind of open that door to yourself, it's like, what does it look like in my dream vision in my head? And then what things do I need to make that happen? Um, and that, I mean, for me, that's where the fun starts.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you
It's also overwhelming.
yes.
I can totally see and respect that as well, but
Yeah, and I love what you said about like putting things together and like seeing where there's like empty space, because I feel like that's very much like I'm not as much of like a specific theme person when I decorate. Like I kind of,
right.
but when I start like pulling out my Halloween decorations and kind of setting them up, I start to see like, okay, like I wish I had like a larger piece to, go in this area,
Mhm.
or oh, I have a lot of these black and white things. I wish I had something like this that's also black and white instead of the one that I have that's orange. And that really starts getting me thinking about things that I might want to make to kind of fill those places and just make I'm waving my hands around. You guys can't see.
Well, and also, like, if you're, vintage lovers like myself and
Yeah.
Penny, vintage Halloween either didn't survive or it is very expensive when you come across it, especially when we're talking like pre
Yes.
1950s Halloween, you know, anything 20s to 40s, most of it was paper mache. And so like the preservation of it is just not there. So in that way, DIY can be so exciting for like I that those are things that are easy to recreate. I
Hmm.
mean, not easy, not like, you know, not like, oh, I'm just going to paint this thing, but really, most anyone could make
Yes.
a paper mache mask if you want to. It's going to take time and effort, but you can do it. And so, yeah, being able to capture the feeling of these decorations that were handmade.
Hmm.
Most Halloween stuff was handmade because people weren't producing it because Halloween was so taboo at first. So I love folk art and that DIY aspect because it makes it feel authentic. It makes it feel true to what Halloween is and was.
Hmm. That actually leads really well into my next question. Well,
Thank
good
you.
job, Midge. I always love when we do that, and I'm like, guys, no, we don't know what the other person is talking about, so like these are
But
truly,
we do
truly organic moments.
but we do share two
This is
brain
true.
cells, so it always kind of
We
works
are in
out.
many
Yeah.
ways the same person. So this was a question that we got from a listener, which I really appreciated. Which was, how do you make something and enjoy it, even if it doesn't match what you imagined? And I think that
Oh, what a
is
great
such
question.
such such a struggle for any creative person. And just to be a nerd, I want to start off by saying that this made me think of the Ira Glass quote about the creative process. So
Yeah.
if anyone is not familiar with this, you can Google The Gap by Ira Glass if you want to read the whole thing. But basically, what he says in this kind of segment is saying that the reason that you want to create is because you have good taste and you know what you want to see, and the struggle is that when you start you don't yet have the skills to match your own taste level, so it's really easy to be disappointed in what you make because you have like these really lofty visions for it, and that kind of the challenge is to muddle through those beginning phases where you're
Sure.
not good at something yet in order to eventually get to the point where you can do it. And that's something that I feel that I struggle with a lot. I definitely, I know that this is also a classic ADHD, but I'm like, oh, I want to be good at this. Wait, I have to be bad at it first? Never mind. I do not wish to do
Yeah,
this
I'm
any
I'm
longer.
not instantly perfect at it.
But I think also one of the ways that I do this, especially with Halloween, is like you said, a lot of this stuff, kind of my inspirations for it is very homemade, is, folky, and maybe is a little bit derpy. And if I like an old Halloween item that like looks kind of funky and I'm like, "Oh, look at that Lumpy Boy. I love him." Why can't I love my own Lumpy Boy that I made?
Well, and in an age of social media, we also only see most people's like
Mhm.
wins.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's why I love shows like Nailed It,
Yes.
because I feel like that's so accurate to actual creation. And if I I've tried to be better about this in the last year with my YouTube channel, like showing when things don't go the way that I thought that they were going to
Mhm.
go. Like my mantle video, I just showed that like I tried to dry brush this one pumpkin and it ended up looking
Yeah.
terrible. And I was like, I'm gonna show it because like I think people, see people like me or a multitude of other makers and are like, oh, I could never do that. And it's like that's not true. I make just as many crappy things as I make great things. um, but that's part of the process. And I think you just have to kind of unplug yourself from the outcome a little bit and enjoy the fact that you're making something. Um, and I would say 90% of the time, I end up surprising myself. Like, even if it doesn't come out the way I envisioned in my head, sometimes I like it a lot better than what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
You never know until you try. And at the end of the day, like you made something. That's
Right.
really freaking cool. A lot of people don't even ever do that. So
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that I am bad at and could be better at, but I think a large part of it too is also just giving yourself time and giving yourself permission to change course if necessary. Like,
Mhm.
so if the thing you are attempting to do either isn't working out just based on what your personal skills are, or maybe the supplies that you are using are not like ideal for that, it's okay to either pause and say, you know what, this is going to turn out different than I thought, and I'm okay with that. Or it's okay to say, you know what, I really want to get the material that I need to make this exactly what I'm envisioning, and it's okay to stop. I definitely like get into a point where I'm like, there's no turning back now. Like, I'm this far in. I just got to keep pushing through. And that is, in fact, not true. You do not have to keep pushing through. You can stop and adjust on the way.
Yes. I'm laughing at myself because I've been in that exact panic mode in the last 10 days where I'm like, you don't have to finish it if it's not what you wanted.
Right, and it's okay to make something different from what you wanted. So
Mhm.
I will say, in honor of this, do you have a so you already mentioned kind of one, do you have any other either examples of things that turned out differently than you wanted, or even just like a full out craft fail that you would like to share with the people?
Yeah, I mean, lots, but I also like this. I don't even know if this would count as a craft, but I think we've talked about this maybe once before that the Jason Voorhees donuts that
Yeah.
I made this year in January, I had made those last year. I had filmed an entire video making them, and they turned out so bad that I was like, "I cannot put this in good, like, faith, put this on the internet as even a joke. It's so bad." Um, and so that was one of those things where I was like, "Clearly my skills here are not like, I had never tried to do
Yep.
that before, and it showed." So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to learn a bit more about this technique, and I'm gonna come back and try again." And that's fine. And then they still weren't perfect when I did them the second time, but they
Yep.
worked and they tasted good. I mean, God, multitudes. My Ouija board that I made in February, I think I show in the video that like transfer, I completely screwed up the wood transfer the first time. It was awful. Just like, again, using the wrong products, not really understanding what I was doing, and I had to do it again. Um, yeah, and I mean the pumpkins I just finished. We did a trial run on those back in
Mhm.
April on my Patreon, and I hated the way they turned out. And I did it live on
Uh,
Patreon,
oh, no.
and I'm like, "See, guys, it's
Ugh.
cool?" Question mark. I hated them. They turned out so poorly, and it was evident that like that technique I had not researched
Yeah.
enough to really know what I was doing. And I mean that technically is one way to do it, but it didn't look the way I
Yeah.
wanted it to. And so yeah, I mean, April was what, 6 months ago? We reframed, we went back to the drawing board. I watched 100 people do different
Yeah.
techniques of ways to do that. And I picked out a few things that I thought like made sense to me for what I wanted them to look like. And I'm thrilled with how they came out this time. Granted, they took 12 days to make, but but it's a learning process, and I think people forget that sometimes about crafting, especially like, again, social media. We're so about like instant
For
gratification.
sure.
Really, what you're doing when you're making something is learning the process of how something is
Yep.
made. And so you have to be okay with that learning curve and the education process of it, and find a way to make that part fun for yourself, or
Yes.
else it's not an enjoyable
Mhm.
process.
Yeah. I mean, the first 2 to 3 things that I sewed were just it was they were
Oh,
unusable. I could not wear it.
wretched. Yeah.
I
Same.
was extremely, like, I was very disappointed in myself for things not working out, and I then didn't sew again for, like, a year because I was like, "Oh,
Yep.
well, I'm bad at this," and
Clearly I'm trash. Yeah.
and eventually had to, get over it, and get back to it, and, look at the mistakes that I made. There were definitely moments where I was like, I don't think this is going to work out, but I'm going to keep on pushing, and that is not the way to go with sewing. You need to course correct in the process if
Right.
possible. Once you get to the end, then it's just going to be a whole lot more work, and uh so definitely
But
like,
look at you now. You made a ball
yeah,
gown.
I did, and I fucked up parts of those ball gowns, but, like, reached the point that I knew who well, first off, I had, people to ask questions, very much appreciated, but also, like, you have to get to the point even to know how to fix your own mistakes and, like, what you
Mhm.
even need to look up, like, I feel like especially with, things like sewing, like there are so many like different like terms that you might want to pick up. So I would like be doing
Sure.
something and I would just be like not trying to Google and be like side too slippy, not go together, right? Question mark fix. And eventually would be able to be like, oh, like what is the best way to ruffle a, poly satin blend? And
Right.
now can, like, actually, like, have the knowledge to solve my problems, which was a
Yeah,
struggle
to ask the
before.
right questions. Absolutely.
It's true, so much of it is asking questions, and also, like, just to contradict all of my own points, also sometimes you don't know if something works until you do get to the end. Like I
Yeah.
was very concerned. Like there was a point in time when I was making my giant mushroom hat for my birthday that I was like this is a huge fail. Like I am not even going to be able to wear this. Like this looks so bad. But once I, slap some extra trim on there, I finished it up and could like shove additional plastic bags inside to poof it up. And I was like, okay, this is still not perfect, but like it's definitely like it's wearable, it's cute, and it was worth, kind of pushing through and working on it.
And I think like I've learned now. I kept thinking, oh, when I get really good at making things, I'll have like no
Oh yeah,
regrets at the end of the process. And that's just never going to be like, there's always room for improvement. There's always something you could have done
for
differently.
sure.
Even if you're, I mean, let's take our queen and goddess just for example. For like Christine
Yeah.
McConnell, at the end of like every video, she's like, I would have done this differently retrospectively. Like she's making at a level that most of us can only
Yeah.
aspire to, and she still has things that she's like, I would have changed this. I think it's just that's part of being a creative
It
person.
is,
Like
and
you
it's also it's good and healthy to be able to identify things that you would wanna change and
yeah,
improve for next time, while not, like, denigrating the thing that you
being like
did
the
make.
whole thing's
Yes.
trash. Yeah.
Like, you can
Exactly.
appreciate what you did make and also say, "Oh, I'm glad I learned X and Y for the next time that I do something like this."
The duality of man.
Indeed. Ugh. All right, so moving on from kind of the strictly crafty, although I already started talking about sewing, we got questions about handmade costumes and specifically, which I really
Oh,
loved, last minute slash unskilled costume ideas for people who can't sew, which I
unskilled.
love. Right? I was like unskilled. I was like, bless you,
It's
my
a
friend.
skill issue, bro.
Bless you, my friend. I am I am a huge fan of like felt and gluing things.
Hell
Like
yeah.
you can dress up a lot of stuff just by gluing something, especially when it's a costume and you're only going to be wearing it for a couple hours, like whatever.
Yeah, get that hot glue gun out, baby.
Mhm. Like I feel like you can always do a lot with a headband and you can make yourself like some little devil horns, you can make some animal ears, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Make that happen. Anytime and I feel like craft stores always have just like lots of good stuff that you can stick on things.
Mhm.
That's my favorite category of craft supplies. Things to stick on
Stick-ons.
things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it. I would say, like also, something I've really been wanting to try is to, like, make my own mask,
Ooh,
and I think,
yeah.
like, you could definitely, without any sewing skills, make, like, a paper mache mask or even a cardboard like, cut out a cardboard piece and then, glue felt or whatever on top to build on top of it, or use air dry clay. I mean, there are lots of ways that you can make a costume that don't require any sewing at all.
For sure. And I think also like there are a lot of costume that just like depends on like putting things together in unexpected ways. Like you don't need even
Oh,
to like
Penny and I are
oh yeah.
we're the queen of closet
Yes,
cosplay.
and like
Yeah.
just pull that closet cosplay, like figure out like what you have that's an outfit that's basically good and then just go for it. I will say my other favorite thing is to do a costume that is entirely based on your head and then you just wear all black and you're like, I don't have a body. Ignore that. Look up here. I've drawn this on my face or I've done I think I
Yeah.
may have mentioned I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but one of my favorite Halloween costumes I ever made, which was really easy, was I was like a mounted fawn. I was like a taxidermy fawn, and I
Oh,
made just
yeah.
like I just cut out a piece of cardboard to be like the plaque, and I glued some like wood grain paper to it, and then I just did
Yeah.
my makeup and I wore all black, and people loved it. I gotta say.
Or like this year, I feel like we're probably gonna see a resurgence of like Haunted Mansion
Hmm.
costumes. Like, go as Leota, paint your face blue, cut a piece of cardboard round so that it goes over your head and shoulders, cut a hole in some red fabric to cover your shoulders, and
There you
boom.
go.
You're Leota. Have a great day.
Yes, you can definitely do it. I also like making like fake t-shirts, like just getting like paint pens or something and decorating a t-shirt, like putting like a fictional band name on there from like your favorite piece of media and suddenly, you're a fan of that you're a groupie for this band.
For
Yeah,
Mouse Rat.
Mouse Rat, Spinal Tap.
That's awesome. I told Taylor. So Taylor's not a costume
Mhm.
person, which is
Tragic.
sacrilegious in my house, but that's fine. But so let's just say that my costume this year has to do with cereal.
Mm.
Um, and I told Taylor that he should follow behind me all night wearing a t-shirt that says serial killer and holding like a giant spoon
Nice.
and just follow me around. And there you go. Boom, costume.
I thought you were gonna say that he was just gonna like wear his pajamas and carry a bowl.
He could do
Love
that
to do
too.
that.
he does. I mean, that's about the level of effort he's willing to put into Halloween. So that sounds good.
Uh, all right. What is one of your favorite, or not one? You can tell me more than one favorite craft projects or DIYs that you've done. I think that your most recent one is probably on the list.
Yeah, pumpkins are definitely on the list. My rotted pumpkin patch turned out pretty sweet. Honestly, I mean, again, circling back to like previous conversation, that is something that turned out very different than what I had in my head. But I'm happy with them. I think they're very cool. Um, Probably my favorite has got to be my spider, I think. That was one of those things that came out so much better than I ever thought I could make it. And that's for me like the reason to craft, right? For those opportunities where you do surprise yourself and it's like, holy crap, I made that. Um, Honestly, I feel like I've had a lot of great opportunities for that this year where things just came out wildly better than I thought they would. Um, but yeah, I think I'm really interested in sculpting more stuff. That's becoming also reasons to craft. Learn about skills you didn't know you had. The more things I'm making in that kind of genre, the more I'm like, do I kind of have a skill set for like eyeing proportions and making, three-dimensional
Eee.
sculptures. So more of that to come, I think, in the following year. Keep your eyes to the skies.
Excellent. Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I feel like there's so much that I want to do still, and like especially like seeing some of I have like I really want to make like a paper mache pumpkin
Yeah,
bucket now that
same.
that's the thing that we're seeing around. So that's one I haven't done yet. What I'm working on right now, which will
You're correct.
ideally,
I
hopefully,
know.
I'll be done with it by the time this podcast comes out. So hopefully my Ouija board skirt turns out well, and I'm proud to tell you on the podcast that I'm really happy
Yeah.
with it. But
I
so far, it's very promising, and I'm very excited.
I've never been so excited for another person's DIY as I am with that. I When you told me I was
Yes, that'll
losing my
be really
crap.
fun, and I mean, I feel like I embarrassingly haven't done a lot of really good Halloween crafts. Like I have a lot more like DIY stuff for other holidays. But I really enjoy I found out that I really enjoyed like wreath making. Like I took like a wreath making class, and I would love to make my
Mm.
own Halloween wreath. This is now a different question that I didn't ask. Now this is just DIYs that you wanted to, which I think is actually my next question, and I just skipped ahead. But
Ooh, DIYs I want to make.
yes,
We don't have time for that.
I know. Anything specific that's like kind of floating around in your brain?
I mean, I am coming up to do something that again, when this airs, hopefully that's happening. I am making the scarecrow from Sleepy Hollow, which is something I've always wanted to
Ah.
make. Um, I don't know. I have a lot of things that I like back burner ideas. um, One that comes to mind, I did, was that two,
Hmm.
3 years ago? God, I don't know. I did the bride, the uh, Bridget Bardot inspired Bride of Frankenstein. And originally, when that idea came to me in a fever dream in the middle of the night, it was
Nice.
Monster Mash, and it was all the monsters as 1950s and 60s fashion icons. And so I still have this like want to do the Wolfman as Mary Tyler Moore.
I love it.
And to do like to create my own like kind of prosthetic for that and do her with like a little flip wig and stuff. That's something I still really want to do, which I guess is technically more of a cosplay than a DIY, but
Yeah, but
that's
I mean, there would be a DIY element
yeah, I would
associated with
make
doing
the
that.
costume and everything.
Hmm.
So I also, side note, we talked about this at Midsummer Scream. The one thing in this world that I want to do more than anything is make a puppet, like
Yes.
a really good puppet. I have been obsessed with puppets since I was like 13. I was not a popular child. But yeah, I would love to make like a high level Avenue Q type puppet where it's like
Yeah,
really, elaborate.
that would
Would
be
be very
super
cool.
cool. That would be very cool. I feel like I'm inspired by you, Midge, and I'm like, oh, I wanna make a custom Ouija board also,
Oh my god,
and
I think everyone should be making Ouija boards. I would like to. I'm in the process right now of making another one.
ah,
That I'm really, really happy with how it's coming out. I didn't do it for the channel. I just did it to enjoy myself. But
yeah.
I'll definitely post it on Instagram when it's done. It's really cool.
Ah, so cool. I even actually now that we're talking about DIYs we need to do, I'm remembering that last year I bought like a 2 foot tall, 2 to 3 foot tall, like wooden coffin, like flat coffin that I
Oh
was gonna
yeah.
make into like a fun like sign, and I have
Oh my
not done
gosh.
that.
Yeah.
So maybe that is something. Maybe that'll be a fun project I can do. Actually, especially if I'm still borrowing this Cricut, and I could print out some
Yeah.
stuff. That might be a good plan. All right, we'll have to try that out. Right. I mean, we could talk about crafts and DIY forever,
I truly could.
but
Yeah.
for now, we are going to wrap up. Please do feel free to let us know about any crafts or DIYs that you're excited about that you've been working on. And if you are enjoying the show, we would love to have your review. You can leave it on your podcatcher if that allows you to. Otherwise, please do feel free to send us one over on Instagram. And I believe Mitch has one from the DMs today.
Straight from the Ghouls Night DMs right to your ear holes. This is from Lila, and they said, "Hi, Ghoul friends. I can't leave a review on Apple Music, but just wanted to leave a little note saying your podcast is so spooky, parentheses, sometimes a little too spooky for me." And cozy in the best way. I listen on my way to work and I feel like I'm an Uber driver with two cool, spooky ladies chatting in the back seat. Keep up the fabulous job.
Oh man, I love that.
Thanks, Lila. That's precious. I wish that that was our job, was to sit in the back of people's cars and talk to them about spooky
Is
stuff.
that right?
Is there a market for that? Like a boober?
Hmm.
No, nope. Never mind.
I mean, we'd
Okay,
also
well,
be good for that one.
Midge Munster has been canceled.
Midge Monster launches Boober.
Take
Users
that,
very
Elon.
confused when she shows up and tells them about ghosts. All right. Well, hop in our boober and follow us on Instagram at Ghouls Night in Pod. And if you are looking for me, you can find me across the internet at Penny Snark.
And you can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Good.
goodbye.